What is going on, everybody? You can call me Heroes 3 Guy, and in this video, I'm going to be ranking all 16 of the combination artifacts in Heroes 3 Horn of the Abyss. And I'm actually going to be ranking these artifacts first place all the way to 16th place. This isn't going to be a tier list where multiple artifacts share the same rank or the same tier. So it might be a little more difficult, a little more tedious, giving these guys each their own rank in relation to each other. And I think it leaves more room for people to have maybe a different list than what I would come up with. But I have played this game for nearly 25 years, essentially since it came out. I feel like I have a very good grasp of what these artifacts have to offer, how often their usefulness comes to fruition. And I also will say I do think there will be some rankings that make some of you guys scratch your head. Where I put some of these artifacts, you may kind of be taken aback or a little surprised, but I will not only explain in detail what these guys do, but why I'm ranking them where I am. Which also then leads me to the criteria. Not only am I going to be ranking them off of what they do, but you know, how difficult they are to obtain. The number of artifacts it takes to make them, you know, how many slots they take up, the specific slots they take up, and also their overall applicability as far as being consistent. You know, for instance, the Admiral's Hat here is going to be a great artifact, but is going to be useless on maps without water. Cloak the Undead King, a crazy good artifact, but if you get it too late in the game, you don't have a hero with necromancy to perhaps utilize it, or there just isn't as much army strength left on the map besides the enemies that you need to kill. You know, if there isn't much on the adventure map for you to utilize to get an undead army, its usefulness goes down, but potential is very high. So there's a lot of variables is why I rank these where I do. And also another thing to keep in mind, these are being ranked as if it's an experienced player playing against the computer, a player that can get the most out of these artifacts, and also again going against the computer, not player versus player. For as long as I've played this game, I haven't really delved into player versus player. So if I got into that, that would probably, if I had to guess, change where I'd rank these. But as far as player versus computer, for a good player, this is the list I'm going to come up with. And I do have, of course, this tier list here in which we're going to place them first through 16th. But before then, let's just go ahead and briefly go over these artifacts. We're going to buff line us up with all the best artifacts in the game and kind of explain them. So first here, of course, we have the Angelic Alliance. It takes up 6 slots. It gives 21 to all primary stats. At the start of battle, as at the beginning of your first unit's turn, it's going to cast Expert Prayer, which of course is 4 defense, 4 attack, and plus 4 speed to all your units. And it lasts for a total of 10 rounds. And it also negates any sort of morale penalty for mixing factions between good and neutral creatures. So you won't get a penalty there, so it can also buff your morale. A very good artifact here. So we'll go ahead and put that back in its place. The next we have the Iron Fist of the Ogre, another weapon here, another combat artifact, if you will. It takes up just 4 slots, which is, of course, nicer than the Angelic Alliance, but it gives significantly less stats, a total of 16, roughly. Less stats to each here, just 5 attack defense, 4 knowledge and spell power. However, at the beginning of battle, on your first unit's turn, it's going to cast 4 really good spells, and it's going to last for 50 rounds. So haste, all these are expert levels. So haste is going to give your units plus 6 unit speed. Bloodlust is going to increase your attack rating in hand-to-hand combat by plus 6. Fire shield at expert level is going to return 30% of damage taken, and then Counter Strike is going to give all of your units 2 additional retaliations in a round. So very nice buffs there. Very good combination artifact for battle. Then we can go here to the Power of the Dragon Father. As you can see, it takes up a lot of slots. It takes up the most slots of any combination artifact in the game. It's going to give your primary stats boost by 16 each, which is nice. It's the second most, although it does take up a lot more stats. It does also increase your morale by 1 and your luck by 1, thanks to this Still Eye of the Dragon. And then it also gives you immunity through levels 1 through 4 spells, except for Dispel. So that can open up a lot of things, such as, maybe casting an Armageddon, things like that. So there's the power of the Dragon Father. The next artifact we have here, in no particular order, is Bow of the Sharpshooter, which is made up of 3 miscellaneous items here. So each one of these will increase your archery skill by a certain percent. It will not give you archery skill. It will only enhance an archery skill that your hero already has. So 10% on one, 15% on the other, and then the last piece is 5% here. So a total of 20 or 30% increase to archery skill. And then on top of that, it does essentially what the golden bow does, plus some more. So it gives your units no ranged penalty. So they hit for full damage anywhere on the map, and including shooting over walls, over obstacles, distance, all of that. And not only that, but it allows your units to shoot with enemies adjacent to them. So obviously, if an enemy unit's next to you, you cannot shoot. But this one allows you to not only shoot the person right next to you, but anyone on the battle map. Very nice artifact here, and just takes up 3 miscellaneous slots. The next one we have here is a Horn of the Abyss artifact, as is the Iron Fist of the Ogre. This is a Horn of the Abyss specific artifact, as is the Diplomat's Cloak. And essentially what it does is each one of these component pieces reduces the cost of surrendering by 10%. And then when you combine it, not only does it keep that 30% reduction in retreating or surrendering costs, but allows you to retreat or surrender when battling neutral monsters, so it gets you out of a bind there. And also, it allows you to do it when defending a town, much like if you were defending in a stronghold castle that has an escape tunnel. So that could come in handy as well. And then it multiplies your hero's army strength by 3 to neutral armies and Thieves Guild. That may allow a monster stack that you would rather have, surrender to you, that would otherwise attack you, that you wouldn't want to necessarily go against. You anticipate taking more losses than you'd like. Little things like that, and it may kind of skew how the AI engages with you, perhaps, by multiplying your army strength in the Thieves Guild. And who knows, like I said, I haven't done much player versus player, but maybe could throw some shit off in the player versus player tavern as well. So we'll go ahead and put that back down, and then we have another artifact that takes up this slot here, and that is the Cloak of the Undead King. So these pieces have been nerfed in Horn of the Abyss, 7.5%, 5%, 2.5% to your necromancy, so a total boost to your necromancy by 15%. And if you combined it, and if it is put on a hero without necromancy, it essentially gives you necromancy at 15%. So it'll raise 15% of the battlefield as skeletons. So you could accumulate skeletons even without necromancy, but the key here, the kick, is if you already have necromancy, of course it's going to enhance the skill you already have, combined with maybe having the necromancy amplifier, or even the soul prison, the grail structure of the Necropolis Castle. So it increases the unit's amount you raise from necromancy, but also when you get to the expert level, it will revive units as liches as opposed to skeletons. A very good artifact. I mean, raising liches compared to skeletons, that's a level 1 to a level 5 creature. That is huge. This artifact can very much snowball and be very potent. So we're going to go ahead and place that there. The next one we have here is the good old Elixir of Life. So it takes up both of the rings and 1 miscellaneous slot. And if you look here, each one of these artifacts increase your health by 1. This one, of course, increases by 2. But then on top of that, it will increase the overall health of your hero, your creatures, by 25%. Not including the 4 you get there. So it'll increase their base by 25% and then still add the 4 from the component parts. But the 25% bonus, and it also gives your units a regeneration of 50 hit points each round, which can come in handy. But the 25% health bonus and the regeneration does not work on undead or unliving creatures. So no golems, no gargoyles, no elementals, no necropolis units, no mummies, things like that. But you still do get the component parts. So not bad, not bad. And then we'll go on here to the Ring of the Magi, which is a little underwhelming, not to spoil anything. So this artifact increases the duration of your spells by 3. This one increases the duration by 1, and this one the duration by 2. So that's a total of 6 there. 3, 5, 6. So essentially, it acts like a lesser version of a spell power, for each spell power you have, that increases the duration of your spells by 1, but this isn't increasing the effectiveness of your fireball, your chain lightning, or your resurrection even. So it does that, but when you combine it, it will increase the duration of all your spells by an additional 50 rounds. So it adds 56 rounds to your duration. Not bad. Oftentimes, you will get enough spell power to give you enough duration. Enough duration anyways for most battles, but especially in Horn of the Abyss, where there's interference and artifacts that can reduce your spell power, it can come in handy. Not bad. A little side note, not to get too much off topic, and I'll probably make another video about maybe suggestions for buffing or nerfing or altering artifacts. I think this artifact would be great and much more utilized if each piece increased spell damage by 5%. 5%, 5%, 5%, 15%. You combine them, it does an additional 5 or even an additional 10. So it could increase overall spell damage by 20% or 25% total. When you combined it, I think it would make this artifact a heck of a lot better and more viable. But we're going to go ahead and put that down here and continue on with the purpose of this video. And then we're going to go to the Pendant of Reflection, which is another Horn of the Abyss artifact. So you have the Boots of Polarity, the Surecoat of the Counterpoise, and the Garniture of Interference. So this is going to add 5% chance to resist a hostile spell, 10% there, and 15% there. So a total of 30% between these component parts, and then when you create it, it does an additional 20%. So having this artifact equipped is going to give all of your units a 50% chance to resist a hostile spell. That's very nice. That is 2.5 times what Expert Resistance gives you. So Expert Resistance is 20%. And the cool thing is that it stacks with Resistance. So if you have Expert Resistance and you have the Pendant of Reflection, boom, you have 70% chance to reduce, reflect, or resist enemy spells. That is very, very cool. Also, the hero Thorgrim, whose specialty is Resistance. If you get him to a high enough level, which increases his Resistance skill, it's a pretty high level, but not unreasonable to obtain in maybe bigger maps, bigger games. You can literally get up to 100% magic resistance with this artifact, with that specific hero. So that's pretty neat. So we'll go ahead and take this guy off. We'll come back down. Oh, and we skipped here the Golden Goose. Good old Heroes 2 reference here, the ultimate artifact of the Golden Goose. So when it's created, it's literally like walking around with 7 gold mines. So each little piece, this does 500 plus 75 or 750 is 1250 plus 1,000, 2,250 plus adding the extra 4,750 from creating the artifact, 7 gold mines per turn. And so you could throw this on, a hero is just hanging out in your castle, put him somewhere safe. As long as it's equipped on any hero, it's going to give you 7,000 per turn. Which brings me to the next artifact that's similar, the Cornucopia. It's created off of these artifacts here. Each one gives +1 to the 4 precious resources, so mercury, sulfur, crystal, and gems. So +1 sulfur, +1 gems, +1 crystal, +1 mercury. You go then to create the artifact, and it does an additional 4 for each of those. So you're getting 5 gems, 5 crystal, 5 sulfur, 5 mercury per day. That's like 20 mines right there for all the precious resources, 5 for each. That is a pretty cool artifact. So then we're going to come here. The next one we got is the Statue of Legion, which is made up of these Legion bits here. As many of you guys know, they increase as long as they are equipped by a hero inside that town. You can get, level 6 unit by 1 per week, level 5 unit by 2, and it goes all the way down to 2 through the 6 level units can get a little bit of a buff. Level 2 units can get 5 per week in that town. And a little fun fact is you can have a hero with the Legs of Legion inside the castle, and then another artifact with Legs of Legion visiting the castle, and you will get the bonus from both of those. But if you combine them, this is going to give all of your castles, all of them universally, doesn't matter if you're roaming the map or inside of a castle, it's going to give them all 50% growth based off their castle creature generation. It does not include flag structures or other bonuses. So if you had a bunch of external dwellings giving you bonuses, it's not going to do 50% based off of the additional bonuses from the external dwellings, just the base creature growth, but still very, very good artifact. And you can still take advantage of the component parts by having this on a hero who's inside the castle. So it'll give you the 50% growth, but it'll also give you these little bonuses as well. A very nice artifact, takes up all the miscellaneous slots, usually goes on a secondary hero to keep it free up artifacts for your main hero. We'll go ahead and put that there. The next guy we got is the Armor of the Damned, which takes up the same slots as the Iron Fist of the Ogre. And essentially it's giving you just 3 attack defense, 2 knowledge spell power, nothing crazy, but it does some really nice spells. So very similar to the Iron Fist of the Ogre, it's going to cast 4 spells at expert level at the beginning of battle for 50 rounds. And of course, when your first unit goes, I mean, it'll cast them, but it's going to be debuffs as opposed to buffs. So it's going to cast expert slow on them, so they're going to get reduced movement speed. It's going to curse them so they hit at minimum damage. It's going to lower their defense with weakness, and it is also going to lower their luck with misfortune. A very nice artifact for debuffing opponents. It's very, very nice little feature there. And so we're going to go ahead and put this on down. Have we gone over all these, my friends? I believe we have. Oh, have we? Oh, no, we have not. We have not, my friends. We have not gone over the good old Admiral's Hat, which is just two spots. That's the least of any of these in the game. So these component pieces increase your movement points at sea. The necklace just gives you 1,000. The Sea Captain's Hat only gives you 500, but it gives you pretty much Summon Boat and Scuttle Boat spell in your spell book, and it also protects your units from whirlpools. And then the kicker is you create it, and it will allow your hero to dock off and get in the water without ending all your movement points for that turn. Obviously for most of you guys play this, you get in a boat or you dock off of a boat, no matter if you have 1 hex away. It takes all of your movement points to dock off or get in a boat. Not with the Admiral's Hat. You can dock off and land all in the same turn as many times as you would like. And what's cool about it is you can throw it on mid-turn and it'll still work. You don't have to have it on the turn before and press turn for its effects to carry over. Very nice, protecting you from the whirlpools is a big bonus as well. It allows you to more comfortably explore the map in certain situations. Very nifty little artifact to have on deck. And then the last one I haven't gone over, I believe, is just the Wizard's Well. Oh no, we need to go over this one as well. We'll go over Titan's Thunder. So these pieces here, made up of the same slots as the Armor of the Damned, the Iron Fist of the Ogre, and in total they do 9 attack defense, 8 knowledge and spell power. These are the ones where the component parts give you, a big boost, but then at the cost of another, but then they can kind of counteract each other a little bit. And so decent boost to primary stats there. And then it does put a unique permanent spell in your spell book. If you don't have a spell book, you can throw this artifact on someone and then boom, they have a spell book from then forward. So it's kind of a way to give free spell books, I guess. And also it gives you a spell called Titan's Lightning Bolt, which does a flat 600 damage. Always does 600 damage, although it does get increased by, it doesn't get affected by your spell power, but it can be increased by sorcery. So that goes up to 20%, and of course more if your specialty is sorcery. And then also it is an air spell, air magic spell. So if you have the Orb of Firmament, miscellaneous slot artifact, that increases the damage of your air magic spells by 50%. So you have that equipped, you can bring it up to 900, and it does not cost any spell points at all. So if you have 0 spell points, you can use this guy. Or if you're, a weak defending hero without, any good spells of your own, you can slap this on them. They got a decent attacking spell. Not bad, not bad. So we'll come here, throw that there, and then I think good old Wizard's Well. This guy's nice, the component parts, so 1 extra spell point per day there, 2 extra spell points per day there, 3 extra spell points per day, but component parts don't matter because when you create it, it will refill all of your spell points each day. It's like visiting a well every day. You do have to have it on before you press turn, but it will bring you up to your max. But if you go above your max, whether you go to a magic spring, which will double your spell points, or same thing with a mana vortex, or if you've collected some bottles in the ocean that give you mana, or vial of mana in the water, it will only refill to the max. So right now he has 12 of 10. If I went down to 0, it's not going to bust me up to 12. It's going to refill me up to 10. Very nice artifact to have on deck. Very convenient. Allows you to not so much worry about running out of spell points. So I believe we have, in fact, gone through each one of these guys briefly. Tried not to give too many hints away as to where I am going to rank these guys. So I think it's time we go on and dive on in and do the business. So before I put these in their slot, I'm going to kind of divide these up a little bit based on, ones that are more combat, I suppose, and ones that are more, let's put that there. Boom. That's a combat. That's combat. These are more adventure map, if you will. And this, yeah, we'll put these kind of in the middle. So these artifacts, you can kind of group them into ones that you want to have equipped during combat, to whereas these guys, they don't do anything for you in combat. And these guys also do something for you in combat, not directly in combat, but you have to have this artifact equipped in order to get the necromancy boost, get the liches, but it doesn't help you in the battle itself. And then same with the diplomat's cloak. It is going to, if you need to surrender or something like that, or you're in a bind, it'll help in that way. You do need it equipped during battle. So these, in order for them to work, you need them equipped during battle. These, you don't, but you do need to have them on, when you press turn, I guess, besides the Admiral's hat there. So as far as who I am going to put in first place, and a lot of you guys may be thinking I'm going to throw the Angelic Alliance, but it's not going to be the Angelic Alliance. And I think a lot of you may think I'm going to throw the Cloak of the Undead King, but it's not going to be the Cloak of the Undead King. The artifact that I'm going to put as the best combination artifact is going to be the Iron Fist of the Ogre. Mainly in that its ability to be obtained is very easy. There are so many games that I've played to where I have, an Iron Fist of the Ogre, or even an Armor of the Damned. These are very simple to obtain compared to a Angelic Alliance. Also, they do take up less slots compared to the Angelic Alliance. You do have your necklace open, and you do have your boots open. So that leaves room to throw on, the Boots of Polarity, which is the component piece of the Pendant of Courage, which increases your magic resistance. Well, it's also the most potent piece at 15%. So you get 15% magic resistance. Thrown there, you could do another 5 if you wanted, or you could, throw the whole shebang on it. You can't throw this on with the Angelic Alliance. You could throw on the Cloak of the Undead King with the Iron Fist of the Ogre, not with the Angelic Alliance. So this gives you more freedom to add in other really good artifacts you otherwise couldn't, compared to the Angelic Alliance. Also, you can get the Pendant of Downfall, you can do the Pendant of Courage, and, or the Necklace of Celestial Necklace of Bliss, the piece of the Angelic Alliance. It's very nice. It gives you more wiggle room to build in other artifacts. Also, not to mention, its buffs are much better than the prayer buff, and even including the potential mitigation of morale penalty. These 4 spells for 50 rounds compared to the morale bonus and the prayer for 10 rounds. This is a way better option. Assuming they don't get dispelled immediately or there's not any artifacts influencing them. But you can kind of protect this with, the Sphere of Permanence, and also in my experience going against, the computer, it's not very often that it gets dispelled. It can, but not very often. And of course, it's also more useful against neutral monsters. So that is why I'm going to edge out the Iron Fist of the Ogre above the Angelic Alliance. And then you may think, well, do I want to put, the Armor of the Damned before the Angelic Alliance? It is very similar to the Iron Fist of the Ogre. It just does 3 attack defense, 2 knowledge spell power, compared to 5 and 4. I do think that the spells on the Armor of the Damned are not quite as good as the Iron Fist of the Ogre. I mean, if you look at it, Fire Shield, normally even at expert level, isn't a mass spell. It's still a single target spell. This gives you a mass version of Fire Shield, which is incredibly nice. Counter Strike is very good. You can say Slow and Bloodlust, Slow and Haste, match each other. Bloodlust, okay. Weakness, okay. They kind of match each other. Curse is nice. Misfortune's nice. But I think these spells, I would rather have these spells in most situations, and it gives a little bit better primary stats. Now, is this one maybe a little bit easier to obtain than the Iron Fist of the Ogre? Slightly. I think, but I think they're both pretty easily attainable. More times than not, I'll get an Armor of the Damned before an Iron Fist of the Ogre, but they're not difficult to obtain. Neither one of them in most maps. And there are a few situations in which I've battled certain units or heroes or monsters where I have an Armor of the Damned on deck, and I did decide to use that in niche situations above the Iron Fist of the Ogre in order to minimize losses, but more times than not, Iron Fist of the Ogre is going to replace the Armor of the Damned. So now the question is, does the Armor of the Damned edge out the Angelic Alliance? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. I think that the Iron Fist of the Ogre slightly edges out the Angelic Alliance. And again, it's hard to knock the Angelic Alliance much out of first place, because if you look at that, 21 to all their primary stats, 21. And you still have some room to throw in some other good artifacts with it. You know, you could have the Bow of the Sharpshooter. You could also have in the Elixir of Life. You could still throw in the Cape of Velocity to get +2 speed to all your units, or the 10% magic resistance artifact. It is a little difficult to obtain, but once you have it, man, getting those 21 to all primary stats can be huge. Excellent artifact. Very, very, very good artifact. So I am going to give it second place, just above the Armor of the Damned here. So again, we're going to have the Armor of the Damned in third place, and then let's go ahead and move some of these guys on down. Get them out of the way. Get them out of the way. And then an artifact that's going to come in first place is an artifact that I would imagine a lot of people saying, whoa, why is that not easily your first place artifact? And again, it gets to my point of criteria of consistency and overall applicability. And that's going to be the Cloak of the Undead King. Oops, keep doing that. There's been a lot of times where I finally come across the Cloak of the Undead King. And I may even have an Acropolis hero, or a hero with that's sitting decent, that has necromancy that I could try to invest into. But I found a lot of times, more times than not, when I get across this, I don't feel the need to try to. There's no point. There's no point to really go back to turn to that hero, take the time to level them up, invest in them, so then they can go around and accumulate liches. Or perhaps you're at a point in the game where they're just. Oh, pardon me 1 second, guys. I do have to type something in over here. And boom. Okay. There's been times where there just simply isn't enough neutral monster strength on the map for my hero to go around and accumulate from. You know, I can only accumulate them from some of the enemy heroes that are left. And you may think, oh, well, that's great. But at the same time, once I beat some of those enemy heroes, or a couple of them, the game's pretty much already won anyway. So they're not really giving me the edge over those enemy troops to begin with. So, a good player may anticipate on a bigger map possibility of getting the Cloak of the Undead King, and if they see a Necropolis hero, they buy them right off the bat. Just, maybe level them up here and there, have them collect some adventure map resource generating structures, make sure they get the necromancy on them, just in case. You can do that, but more times than not, just a little bit, when I get this artifact, I can't really utilize it as you could, but there have also been games where the game just is essentially broken. You get this on a guy early, there's still tons of neutral monster strength to take advantage of, to turn into your undead minions, your liches, and you just get the most ridiculous stack of liches in the game as one. And there's been maps where it's like, man, I don't even want to play with this artifact because it's going to kind of break the game. I mean, its ceiling is super high, but I do think that its floor is lower than the artifacts I've ranked above it. These artifacts here, they're much more consistent. You don't need the expert, necromancy. You don't need monsters on the adventure map to take advantage of. And also, I have also played some Heroes 3 games into where the template of the map was edited to where even if you had expert necromancy, it still just raised skeletons. So that's why I'm going to knock it down a little bit compared to where some people would maybe have it in that first or second place slot. So that's where we're going to put that one. High ceiling, but I just don't find myself using it as often. Whereas in a lot of my other playthroughs, I almost always am at the end of the game or, mid-game, my artifacts of choice. I always got myself an Armor of the Damned. I always have myself a, Iron Fist of the Ogre. Not always at a Angelic Alliance, but these guys are just way more consistent and valuable for me. I'm looking for those always and tend to get them. So the next artifact I'm going to put on here is going to be maybe a head scratcher, maybe not for some, but it's going to be the Admiral's Hat. Okay, and of course this artifact means nothing on a map that does not have any water at all, or even just maybe a little bit of water, or maybe a map to where you could simply cast Water Walk and achieve the same goal. But especially in Horn of the Abyss, which has bigger maps and has also increased the amount of water objects, the adventure map objects you can put in the water. I think it's very useful, and in any map where it would be useful, you're hunting for it. You want it, you need it. You're going to need it on your hero. You can really fool the AI with it. The AI, the computer, does not do a good job. If you hang out right on the shore, off the shore of one of the castles, they're going to anticipate you having to get to their castle in a couple of turns. They may not come back to defend it had you docked off, and you can kind of surprise them, kind of take advantage of the AI. It only takes up 2 slots, so you only need 2. It's pretty easy to obtain. It's not hard to obtain at all. Protects you from those whirlpools and just opens up so many doors on the adventure map. Of course, the floor can be low. Again, could be obsolete. No water on the map, which hopefully it's been edited. These artifacts have been edited out of said maps, as hopefully navigation was. And that's the other thing too, is there have been a lot of times where I'm playing a map with my main hero. I'm really liking him. Great specialty, great artifacts, great army. And I made the mistake of not getting navigation, or I just didn't maybe to get offered it, or I maybe looked past it, and I move slower than butt on the water. But if I can throw on an Admiral's Hat, it greatly mitigates it. It makes it not bad. Also, the fact that you can dock off and move in the same turn, and then especially if you have navigation plus this artifact, you just fucking choo-choo across the water. It is very nice. This increases your movement across water way more than the Wayfarer's boots, boots of speed, and Equestrian's gloves do across land. So I think that on maps where this is applicable, its ease of obtaining and its usefulness on the adventure map is just unmatched. I got to put it in 5th place. It's going to be the first kind of adventure map, first place adventure map object here. So now what I think we're going to do, instead of going to 6th place, I think what I'll go ahead and do is kind of work from the bottom. So I'm going to put this Ring of the Magi here all the way in dead last. I kind of went over earlier how I wish it would be buffed. It's adding a total of 56 rounds to your spell duration. More times than not, you're going to have enough spell power to last the duration for a battle anyways. It could maybe counteract an enemy hero with interference and the armor or plate of the Dying Light artifact that lowers your spell power by a bunch every now and then. But even then, if I'm going into a battle where I have 30 spell power, even 20, and they're reducing it by 50% or something, even let's say 50%, they half it to 10. And, it's like, hey, I could put this, not have to worry about duration of spells, as opposed to normally I'd maybe only have 10 rounds of duration. I'd still rather have 10 rounds as opposed to 60 or 70 rounds and have the Cape of Velocity or have, the Pendant of Courage, things like that. And who's to say that these spells won't get counteracted? A slow may be counteracted with a haste, or there could be a dispel, that sort of thing. I think that it's not very useful. It's, maybe early game, some of the component parts can be nice, but eventually a good hero is going to get enough spell power. And then even in games or battles where it would be nice, usually you'd probably even prefer just different artifacts. I think it's overall not useless, but practically there's almost always a better option, in my opinion, from my experience playing this game. And again, I would like to see maybe there could be a strong sorcery player. You maybe have the Orb of Tempestuous Fire, Expert Fire Magic, Expert Sorcery. You can give 5% for each of these guys spell damage. You combine them, does an extra 5 to 10%. I think that could open up some doors and make this artifact a little bit more viable. So we're going to go ahead and put that guy in good old last place there. So now I have to decide, do I want to work from the bottom? I know who I'm putting in 15th place, and I know it's going to be a little bit of a shocker. So I'm debating whether or not I want to work that now, and I think I'm just going to go ahead and still work from the top. We'll go to the 6th place, and that is going to be the Elixir of Life. And I give it as much credit as I do, kind of how I judge the Admiral's Hat, and that is that the Admiral's Hat requires 2. This only requires 3 slots. 1 more. And also, it's a nice group of 3. You know, you can wear this with the Angelic Alliance, but some of these other artifacts that require 3, you cannot. I mean, you could, you can't do, obviously that one's not that great, but you can't do the, where are we at here? You can't do the Pendant of Courage, you can't do the Armor of the Damned, but you can do this. It's a nice, unique set. It doesn't interfere with as much as other artifacts of same slots. And more times than not, I know it has its limitations if you have, you know, undead or unliving, but vast majority of creatures get a huge bonus to their health. I mean, this is in the game. Unless you're walking around as Necropolis or something like that, you know, you're going to want this artifact in all of your battles. It is a go-to artifact. It's one that you're going to be hunting for 9 times out of 10, and if you have it, you're going to be wanting it in all of your battles 9+ times out of 10. It's just a go-to. It's a go-to. It's not higher on the list because obviously it's not giving you 21 primary stats and all of that, but just for the amount it takes up, the ease of obtaining it, and how you can slide it into your in-game build with other better great artifacts, it's just hard to pass this guy up. I mean, 25% boost. I mean, because if you think about it, just the component parts did just 4. So, you know, let's say you have Ancient Behemoths, and it's going to give you 304. Woo! But what this does is 25%. Oof, that's nice. That's an additional 75 hit points to the Ancient Behemoths. So 375 plus the 4, 379 from 300. That is a huge boost to each one of those Ancient Behemoths. So it's nice they added that percent in there to kind of help the higher level creatures, and it still does a good job with lower level, of course, because the component parts. I mean, look at that. It's 60% boost there to Pikeman's health. That is just hard to pass up, my friends. That's hard to pass up. Very, very tanky, very easy to add in. Definitely going in at the number 6 slot. So now we got to rank the number 7, and I'm starting to rank some in places where you're going to be like, whoa, why isn't that, what are you doing? Why isn't that popped up yet? The next slot's going to be the Golden Goose. God, I keep doing that. It's going to be the Golden Goose because, again, 7 gold mines. 7 gold mines per turn. Gold's what you need to buy all your troops. It can be equipped on a not your main hero. You know, you can leave good battle artifacts from him. You can have multiple of these. They're easy to obtain. I mean, just 3 of these artifacts are not hard to obtain, and they can just allow you to snowball. They can allow you to afford all your troops, afford stuff on the adventure map, help you afford, you know, if you have diplomacy or, you know, very expensive troops. It really opens up doors and allows you to accumulate that army. You can, you know, in bigger maps, you can have multiple of them. I mean, come on, 7 gold mines in one. That's just too hard to pass up, guys. And the fact that you can just slip it on a random hero, put him somewhere safe. You can even throw him on a sanctuary for crying out loud. And there you go. Pretty easy to obtain. I get this in most of my games. Throw it on a guy. Opens up a lot of doors. Can really synergize well with the treasury. This has definitely turned a lot of my games around. So I am going to throw the Golden Goose there. The Goose! In good old 7th place. So now going on to where I am putting in 8th place, I am going to put the Statue of Legion because much like the Golden Goose, it can snowball, so this gives you money to afford troops, so this gives you a bunch more troops globally. It is, the reason I put the Golden Goose above it, there's more pieces to collect. You know, you can just throw it on any Joe Schmo hero and it'll work. You don't have to have it on your main hero, which is nice like the Golden Goose, but it is less spots than the Golden Goose, so I give it the edge there. The Golden Goose, the edge above it there. But this is just, you get this artifact, and assuming you're able to afford this creature growth, it can really also, again, allow your army strength to snowball. This artifact is excellent. Excellent. So definitely going to throw that guy here in 8th place. What I'm going to do for 9th place is I'm going to give it to you and you guys are wondering, like, what the fuck? Why haven't you ranked that yet? Why haven't you ranked that yet? I'm going to give it to the Wizard's Well. Basic, good old Wizard's Well, because it really, it's one of the go-to. You always want to have a Wizard's Well sitting on your main hero, especially on these bigger Horn of the Abyss maps. You don't have to worry about keeping up on your spell points. You don't have to go out of your way to go to a well. You don't have to go back to a castle. You don't have, and yeah, there are a number of ways. You can get a lot of knowledge. You can even have intelligence. But so many times, a good player, it will prevent you from ever being in the bind of having to worry about your spell points. You just plan ahead for a turn, take off whatever artifacts you normally would have on for battle, slip this guy on, press turn, next turn, take them off, throw your artifacts back on, you have max spell points. It is a go-to backpack artifact. You always want to have one of these on deck on your main hero. And sometimes it sits in your backpack and you haven't really had to rely on it, but there have been a lot of times where I am glad I had the Wizard's Well. That would have been very inconvenient had I not had that. It opens up more doors. You can continue to maybe take on some battles or continue exploring when you otherwise would want to go back. You're reliant on some spells to maybe win the battles or at least mitigate losses on those battles. And this can open up a lot of doors for you. I think it's very important. So we went ahead and we're putting the Wizard's Well there, making the top 10. And then for 10th place, I'm going to place an artifact that most of you guys are wishing I maybe would have ranked by now, and that's going to be the Bow of the Sharpshooter. And the reason I'm going to have that as high of a ceiling as this artifact has a very high ceiling. Again, it's going to have a very low floor. So you may not have any good shooters in your end-game army, and therefore you're not really going to want this. You may not have the archery skill to take advantage of this 30% boost. Again, you have to have the archery skill to get the 30% boost from this artifact. It's not going to give you a 30% archery skill. So there's a lot of times where I make the Bow of the Sharpshooter, and I'm like, I don't really have any shooters. I have one shooter who's not even that good and will probably become obsolete here, or is going to get picked off or dwindled down. So more times than not, even when I make a Bow of the Sharpshooter, I oftentimes will equip a different artifact on Cat. Get off. Sorry. I will equip a different artifact than the Bow of the Sharpshooter. There's other things I'd rather put in here more times than not. But there are times when I'm wanting the Bow of the Sharpshooter more than anything. More than anything. I have expert archery. Maybe I have fucking mean stack of Titans. Or I got just mean stacks of some shooters. Or perhaps I got my hands on a Drakon or a Gaelu who can turn, creatures into sharpshooters and enchanters. And I get a mean stack of them. It can be wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Very high ceiling, but a low floor. It's nice that it only takes up 3 slots, but they all are in your miscellaneous, which that can kind of throw things off a little bit. There's been times where it's like, man, I'd like to fit one more thing in there. It takes up 60% of your miscellaneous slots there. I like the setup better of the a 3-slotter of the what's it called? The Elixir of Life. I like that setup a little better, and I may also like this one a little better too. But it does take up the good old stop it. It does take up the slot where the Cape of Velocity would go. But yeah, Bow of the Sharpshooter, huge ceiling, but a lot of times it's not going to have its time to shine. So that is why I'm going to have it at 10th place, as low on the list as I do. The next guy, you guys are like, whoa, why are you not ranking this one yet? Well, you know what? We're going to do the 11th place as the Pendant of Courage. Again, this one can be, it lacks, it's not as consistent. If you notice, we're getting lower and lower on the list. They're just not as consistently utilized. So this is not really going to be utilized against neutral monsters. Barring, it's nice to have it on deck going against maybe fairy dragons, or perhaps units that can cast a spell on attack. You can have a chance to resist. But in neutral stacks, it's not doing anything. But it can really, really, really come in handy in battles against strong enemy heroes who are going to be casting good spells. Debuffs or damaging spells, things like that. Of course, it won't allow you to resist, put resistance on his units to resist buffs, but oftentimes this can really, really turn the tide of battle. I do like its slots it takes up enough. It does bug me that it takes up again the where this cape would go, because I really like the Cape of Velocity artifact. It does have these boots here can be thrown in a lot, and it's the most potent component piece at 15. That's 10. That's 5%. But we're ranking the combination, not the components. That'll be for other videos. So I'm going to put it lower on the list. It can really turn the tide of battle. Really come in handy in certain situations, but not usually till later in the game, and sometimes you're not even going to put it on later in the game. So I got to put it lower on the list because of that. Great artifact, but just its time to shine is few and far between, I've found. So next on the list, guys, I'm going to go ahead and put the Cornucopia. And some of you are like, what's this guy's list sucks. But I'll go back over my list here in a little bit. And you may be wondering, why didn't I put the Cornucopia further up here next to the Golden Goose? This is like having 20 precious resources mines compared to this one being just 7 gold mines. Well, gold is king over precious resources. Yeah, this does give 5, which can snowball. You can often trade these guys for gold later in the marketplace. You get this going early. It can really open up doors for maybe recruiting a fat stack of Azuri dragons or one of those 4 dragons. But you need the gold as well. It takes up 1 extra slot, and I think gold is more important than precious resources. Often by the time you get this artifact, not always. I had a playthrough recently where getting this, I was playing co-op and I got this early, and it really opened up a lot of doors in the early stage of the game for building up our castles on that specific map. But more times than not, by the time you get this, you've already got a decent amount of structures built. You've utilized, gotten your precious resources, was able to build things up. You're sitting okay on precious resources, but you're almost always going to need gold. You're always going to need gold, beginning to end. So by the time you usually obtain this, you've already kind of built stuff up. So that's why I did put it lower than the Golden Goose, but still a great artifact to have. I'd always take one. Again, you could throw it on another hero, and you could even slap the Golden Goose on the guy, and you'll throw him on a sanctuary or keep him somewhere out of harm's way. And this guy would make you rich. Maybe get expert estates on him and all that. Right, anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and put that guy down there. And then where I'm going to rank the next artifact is I'm going to go ahead and do the Titan's Thunder in first place. I'm sorry, first place, 13th place. And that is because by the time you can get these artifacts, they're hard to get. The pieces are hard to get, much like the pieces of some of the pieces of the Angelic Alliance. And by the time you create them, you usually have better spells than the spell it offers. And you usually have better artifacts. It is more times than not obsolete by the time you obtain it. And I think even if you look this artifact up online, they even put like a note, like usually by the time you obtain this artifact, its component parts, it's obsolete. It's a little pricey for what it offers you. It's not bad. Throw it on a secondary hero, or secondary hero is maybe defending a castle, or God forbid someone comes in to attack you. You have a weak hero who doesn't really have any good spells. Well, this one's not bad. It's not like you can get this early game, and that 600 will really help you explore the adventure map well. Like if you had a 600 damaging spell early on, that'd be crazy. But you're not going to get this until later. And I know I'm not ranking the component pieces, but a good piece, the best piece, is this Thunder Helmet. Plus 10 knowledge. You slap that baby on right before you hit a well, or right before you replenish your spell points somehow. And that's going to increase your mana pool. You fill it up, and then after you filled it up, you can just take it off and put something better on. And the component pieces aren't bad. The other 3 aren't bad. You kind of have to be careful because they do lower your other ones. Net you're gaining, but it's something to keep in mind. So not bad, but all in all, this isn't going to be an end-game artifact. It's kind of hard to obtain. It just eventually becomes obsolete. And there's niche situations where it could come in handy, but generally, this one's not a go-to artifact. It's not something you're looking to build. You're more or less wanting to get just the Thunder Helmet and utilize that. So it's nice to have the piece of it, but no, this artifact is not useless, but it rarely has its moment to shine, and it often misses its moment to shine. So it's pretty down on the list. And then what I'm going to rank in 14th place, guys, is going to be the, or not the Ambassador Sash, it's going to be the Diplomat's Cloak. It is going to be in the 14th place there. And it's kind of an artifact of weakness. It's, oh, if I have to surrender, I pay less money. It's just like, all right, or, you know, oh, I may have to surrender here. It's not really an artifact of strength. It's something that you'll want to have on, you're in your backpack, like as a just in case. You know, you can throw it on your hero, and if you find yourself in a spot like, oh, fuck, that guy's about to attack me, well, can I surrender? Okay, you know, I'm not going to kill this guy. I'm not going to do a whole lot of damage. Let's throw on the Diplomat's Cloak so I can try to salvage as much troops as possible. You know, and same thing, let's say you're in a castle, and you can't have your hero escape. Someone's about to lay siege. Like, all right, I want the ability to surrender in a castle. But, you know, more times than not, you can town portal away. You know, unless you get blindsided, you can't town portal away. And if you don't have this on, you know, and you get blindsided, it doesn't matter. So, you know, if you're in a game where, oh, shoot, I'm about to get attacked next turn, let me throw this on. More times than not, you're going to be in a game where you can just town portal away. More times than not. You know, I guess if you, you know, didn't have town portal and you wanted to get out of dodge or get back home and had a bunch of money, you could attack a neutral monster and then surrender, get everything back to a different spot on the map. It's just eh. And then multiplying your army strength by 3. You know, I think I mentioned earlier, you know, let's say, ah, man, these guys are probably going to attack me. I really wish they wouldn't. I could take them, but I'm going to take more losses than I want. Let me throw on the Diplomat's Cloak, and it's going to multiply my army strength to the neutral army. It's going to maybe make them more likely to, I guess, you know, surrender, I guess. I guess that's how, you know. But more times than not, it's nice to have on deck just in case. But it's rare that it has its moment to shine. But there have definitely been moments where it has for me, but it's few and far between. But, you know, I'll throw it in my backpack, kind of like a Wizard's Well. But Wizard's Wells would get utilized way more than a Diplomat's Cloak. And so that's why it's going to be all the way down there. And then 15th place, an artifact that many people put up high. I don't get it. I don't get it at all, guys. I've played this game a lot. And I rarely have Power of the Dragon Father as my artifact. And even if I'm like have the pieces, I think, oh, I may have the pieces of Power of the Dragon Father. I don't even fucking bother making it. First of all, it takes up so many slots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 slots. There's not much else you can put in to synergize with it. Yeah, it does give 16 of all of these, but at the cost of a lot of slots, it gives 1 knowledge, or 1 morale, and 1 luck. Oh, like, all right. For the amount of slots it takes up, I don't think you're getting a whole lot from it. And, you know, you're paying a big price with these slots. You know, you can't throw in, you know, the Pendant of Reflection, or you can't throw in the Elixir of Life. You can't throw in, you know, the Cloak of the Undead King. Yeah, you could throw in, you know, the Bow of the Sharpshooter, and but no, and you can't throw in nice little artifacts like Cape of Velocity or a good necklace. Just takes up too many frickin' slots. And on top of that, this whole thing about becoming immune to all level 1 through 4 spells, like what do you want to do? Like a Dragogeddon strategy? Like, first of all, the thing with hard-hitting spells, they tend to have their moment to shine in that like early mid-game, because then as the game progresses, you get to where monster strength is so strong that spells take out less and less percentage of the stacks. So hard-hitting spells late game become obsolete. They don't become as potent. They lose effectiveness later in the game, and this is an artifact that's probably going to take you to the late game to get. So by the time you get it and want to incorporate the Dragogeddon strategy, you probably can already clear through areas. You can probably, you know, do the things that the Armageddon just probably won't even be as effective. You know, maybe in certain situations or specific maps where you're, I don't know. It's just, I think this artifact sucks, personally. I think it looks way better than it is. And then also the whole thing of your, like, I would rather, a good player would rather be able to cast spells on his own units and risk the computer casting debuffs on his than the other way around. Like, I trust my ability to buff my units more than I'm worried about an enemy hero debuffing mine. And then, you know, except to dispel, you know, whatever. I don't think that's anything great. You know, you can't resurrect your troops. You know, you throw this around, you duke out a battle, and you can't buff them. Yeah, you can debuff them guys, or those enemy guys, and, you know, hit them with some Armageddon, which by the probably won't hit that hard relative to troops army strength at that point in the game, and then you can't even resurrect your guys. Like, I think it looks way better than it is, guys. Anytime I can get it, I don't even bother. There's so many other things I'd rather wear, and whatever usefulness it could have, like, yeah, maybe early in a game where hard-hitting Armageddon is very potent, and you could do it. But then again, there's so many others. You'll probably get a frickin' more times than not in most maps. You can most likely get your hands on a frickin' Armageddon's Blade before you get all the pieces for this, if an Armageddon's Blade is obtainable on those maps. Oh, okay. And, or you can have specific troops that you can throw on. Maybe you throw on Gold Dragons or Black Dragons or Ifrits, or, you're playing as Conflux, and you could have, Phoenixes, Fire Energy Elementals, Psychic or Magic Elementals, Magma Elementals in your army, and you could do an Armageddon that way. There's a lot of other ways to impose the Armageddon strategy to where your troops aren't being hit, and all of those are much more likely to play out than obtaining this artifact and doing it. Like, takes up way too many slots, difficult to get, overrated, complete overrated. I feel like a lot of people, see, $16 stats and you're immune to Armageddon. It doesn't pan out as well as I think a lot of players think it would. So that's why that's way down there in 15th place. But I do edge out above, the Ring of the Magi. So yeah, here we have it, guys. First place. We got to give it to the Iron Fist of the Ogre. It's consistent. It's easy to obtain. It only takes up 4 slots. You're able to put a lot of other artifacts to synergize, equip with it. Great debuffs, or great buffs. I think the spells it casts are better than what the Angelic Alliance and the Armor of the Damned offers. So I got to give that to the first place slot. It's what I'm always looking for. Close second has got to be the Angelic Alliance. It's much more difficult to get. It takes more artifacts. You can't equip as much with it because it takes up more slots. But just that insane boost to primary stats, consistent. You don't get it as often, though, as the Iron Fist of the Ogre, but just so good. So good. A lot of people put that in first place, and fine. I won't argue with that, but I am going to edge out the Iron Fist of the Ogre. Third place, again, it's going to be the Armor of the Damned. A little bit even easier to get than the Iron Fist of the Ogre. Yeah, I found more times than not I can get this easier than the Iron Fist of the Ogre. The debuffs are great. I do like those debuffs better than even the Angelic Alliance buffs, but not as good as the Iron Fist of the Ogre's buffs. Not as much to primary stats as this one. It's not huge, but not as much. But amazing artifact. Turns the tide, allows you to explore the adventure map. And that's the thing, is you can get these two here way earlier than the Angelic Alliance, to where it helps you in that stage where you're exploring the adventure map. I mean, when you get these 4 spells from these 2 artifacts here, casting in neutral battles, man, that opens up so many doors, minimizes your losses by a ton, and just allows you to snowball on the adventure map. Whereas by the time you get this, the prayer's not going to even help you as much as those spells would, and it's later in the game. So that's going to take third place, but it can't edge out the Angelic Alliance. Just too good with primary stats, too solid. But this one is better than that one, and I think just slightly edges it out. Cloak the Undead King, 4th place. You got to give it there. It has the highest ceiling of any of these artifacts. I mean, there are games that can be broken. There's a lot of maps where people will disable it. They won't allow you to get it, or they'll straight up tell you try to beat it without it. It can make games a cakewalk. I mean, it can literally take kind of the fun away. It's like, all right, well, I have like 3,000 liches, and I one-shot everything with my Death Cloud. This is ridiculous. And but other games, it doesn't snowball quite as much. And that's probably a little better, a little more fun, but it's just has so much potential. But its time to shine isn't as consistent. You get this, it's always going to be nice for you. You get this, it may be too late, or not worth it, or you don't have anyone to really utilize it, or perhaps it could, a lot of times in maps, it can be edited to where it still doesn't raise liches, just skeletons. So it's lower ceiling, but they're lower floor, but probably the highest ceiling of any of these artifacts. So I got to throw that there. Admiral's Hat, I got to give that above these guys. I know it doesn't always have its time to shine, but in most maps it does, especially Horn of the Abyss, and especially there being bigger maps here. You can go above extra large. You can play the huge, extra huge, and the giant. It just opens up so many doors, so many doors. You keep that in your backpack. You have it on deck. Greatly enhances your adventure map mobility. it is very nice. You can kind of manipulate the AI with it, trick the AI with it. Protect yourself in waterfalls only costs 2 things to equip. It doesn't matter how many it costs to equip it, because you can take things off, put it on, use it, and then take it off and put the other shit back on. But the fact that it only is 2 means it's super easy to find. You only have to find 2 artifacts in order to make this. And oftentimes I'll play maps where they make this artifact extremely difficult to get because it is just so good. It's very good. You're always hunting for an Admiral's hat. You're always like, yes, Admiral's hat. Unless there's no water on the map or islands super close together, and you could perhaps do, if you have expert water magic, do your water walk. But a lot of times water walk's banned, and a lot of times fly's banned even more than water walk, way more than water walk. Water walk maybe not that much banned, but you can't move over obstacles. So sometimes I've found even if you're playing a map with islands and things are close together to where you can water walk from island to island, I'd still rather have the Admiral's hat and just boat from island to island. I feel like it's a little more effective, slightly. But that's if it's a map where things are that close that water walk can even come close to replacing the Admiral's hat. So then you got to give it to the Elixir of Life. Vast majority of these creatures in the game are going to benefit from its effects. It takes up just 3 slots, fits well with so many different artifacts, and just really, really makes your units tanky. Like, this is so hard to pass up. So hard to pass up. A nice, consistent buff to most units, easy to obtain. And then Golden Goose, easy to obtain, 3 slots, throw it on a secondary hero. It's like having 7 gold mines. Cash is king, guys. Gold's king. You're going to need it. Very nice, pretty easy to obtain. And then why do you want gold? Well, you want to afford troops. And this one's more difficult to obtain, more slots, but it does increase your creature growth in your castles. And it's more effective, obviously, in games where you have more and more castles. If you have 10 castles, you're obviously getting a lot more creature bonuses than just having 1. But all in all, an extremely good artifact. Wizards, well, always want to have that on deck on your main hero, guys. It can really get you out of a bind. Very nice to have. Bow of the Sharpshooter, kind of like the Cloak of the Undead King. Not as high of a ceiling, but it does have that lower floor. It's not always going to come through. You may not have any quality ranged units to put in your army. You may not have archery, but if you do, ooh, this is dirty, very dirty. Same thing here, lower floor, decently high ceiling, probably not as high of a ceiling as, the Sharpshooter, Bow of Sharpshooter, of course, Cloak of the Undead King. Not going to be utilized against adventure map creatures, or at least most of them, fairy dragons and stuff, but has its moment to shine, and when it does have its moment to shine, it is very effective and very useful, but just doesn't always have its moment. Throw the cornucopia on there, a little bit harder to obtain, 1 extra slot, and again, the reason I'm putting it so much lower in relation to the other Golden Goose and then even the Statue of Legion is that by the time you get it, you're probably okay on precious resources. You've already built up your castles. You've already, afforded your mage guilds. You've already afforded your structures. You probably already have enough mines to afford your level 7 troops, but it definitely helps. You can always trade them for gold, and, it can really open up doors for what you can buy, as far as maybe some, Azuri dragons, crystal dragons, that sort of thing. And, archangels are expensive. But all in all, gold's more consistent and useful, easier to obtain. So that's got pushed down a little bit. 13th usually becomes obsolete by the time you get it here. The Titan's Thunder, its spell's obsolete. Its the artifact's obsolete. Overall, just more expensive than what it offers. And Cloak of the Diplomat's Cloak. It's kind of an artifact of weakness, niche artifact. You can normally get yourself out of a bind without it. And, I did mention a nice little buff I wanted to see on the Ring of the Magi by increasing spell damage. I think this artifact would be even more nice to have if it allowed you to retreat or surrender when Shackles of War are present. That way you could maybe have it on with your own Shackles of War to where they can't retreat, but you can. Or perhaps you've scouted a strong enemy hero and he has Shackles of War, and you're like, shit, like maybe, throw this on. I think that would increase it a little bit, and I don't think that would be too broken or too disrespectful to the Shackles of War, which I love. I love the Shackles of War artifact. But again, it can come in handy, but more times than not, you can get yourself out of the same bind in other means. So yeah, there's that. And then, of course, went over the Power of the Dragon Father. Overrated as can be. And then this guy is just what it offers. It rarely has its chance to shine. Increases spell duration. You probably don't have to worry too much about that. And even if it was an issue, there's probably better artifacts you'd rather equip anyways. So here's my list, guys. This is what I've come up with in my experience playing this game. It was difficult, being that I had to rank them 1st through 16th. I wasn't putting them in a tier in a same level next to each other. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you'd like, you can type a 1 through 16 and maybe show me what you would have on your slots, or maybe you just want to change a couple of things around, or you feel like I missed an important aspect of one of these artifacts and you want to maybe shed some light. I'd be happy to go over my list again to hear what you have to say. Maybe you'll change my mind. Maybe I'll switch some stuff around. But yeah, I just thought this. I was looking at them just the other day, and this is the order I've settled on based on my experience playing these guys. So I hope I've given enough explanation to justify it. I hope you don't think I'm a complete fool for how I rank them. If you are, let me know. I'd love to hear what you guys have to think. So I'd really appreciate it if you've watched this far. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Likes, comments, subscriptions, all very much appreciated. If you'd like to join the channel, 99 cents a month, and you get weekly cat pictures, guys. You like cats. And on top of that, I do have a donation link in the description below and on my channel if you feel so inclined. I would very, very much appreciate it, guys. Keep your eye out for more content. I am going to do some more ranking videos, including more artifact ranking videos. So keep an eye out for those, guys. And until next time, take care.